Here's one I probably can't respect. A day in the life of a stay-at-home husband.
Sorry, tough guys, it's a day in the life of a stay-at-home husband. Time to check your misogyny at the door and buckle up. First thing I do is I make my wife some coffee after making the bed. Then I do my wife's laundry. When juggling your husbandly duties, it's essential to separate the Lulus from the dryer. Next, I feed the dog, because who else is gonna do it? I assert my dominance over all I have left, then I make my wife some breakfast. She likes her eggs air-fried with a rice cake and peanut butter. Then I feed the plants before I feed myself, and I tidy up the house. Once the house was clean, my wife took me out on the town, followed to end the patriarchy.
I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up. This guy exists to annoy me. That's my theory. It's not even a stay-at-home dad, okay? This is not a stay-at-home husband. There's no kids to take care of even. I gotta tell you something. I don't care how progressive people pretend to be. I don't care how progressive a woman pretends to be. No woman wants that or respects it.
You disgust me.
Now, they might find some benefits in it for a time because you're staying at home, doing your husbandly duties. At a certain point, she's gonna realize, I don't actually want a manservant. I want a husband, okay? I want someone who's gonna provide and be a man. That's what I want. That's what every woman wants. Okay, you're a stay-at-home husband, you don't do anything. I gotta respect that. And marriage can't survive without respect.
Deep in the heart of every man is a longing for a battle to fight, an adventure to live, a beauty to rescue. It's how we bear the image of God. It's what we were made to be, and it's been lost. It must be recovered. Maybe what we need is permission. That heart that gets stirred in you by certain poems and music and movies and places in nature and the things you love in the world, the things that make you come alive. God gave you that heart for a reason.
One of my friends described it as, I feel behind in everything. I feel behind in my finances, behind in my marriage. I feel behind in my yard work, right? It's just an incessant feel of being behind. There's never enough time. You see, as we've been talking about this weekend, those are all symptoms. They're all symptoms. If we could get to the core of this reality, we would find the condition of fatherlessness.
Every day, every one of us is seeking the answer to that question. Do I have what it takes? As a man, and as we go back in our stories, many years before, as a boy. And because life just kind of beats the crap out of us, the answer is mostly no.
Hey, thank you for each week checking out Triple Play. And over the course of the next few weeks, you're going to hear some amazing guests. I'm telling you, we love them. But unexpectedly, they all have a common thread. So I thought we would start this coincidental series, as I like to call it, by giving you some information to keep in your head. Okay, this information will be key. We obviously know that it all begins with the heart of man, but I think we need to go one little step higher than that and talk about this coincidental series. So with that, I want to give you some information. This is according to some research I found on the internet, and I just thought it was so prevalent that we have this in our head. Across America, there are approximately 18.3 million children who live without a father in a home, comprising 1 in 4 U.S. children. The United States has the highest rate of children living in single-parent households of any nation in the world. About 80% of single-parent homes are led by single mothers. At a rate of 23% of children living with one parent and no other adult, the United States stands over 3 times the world average of 7% of children raised by one parent. For reference, the number stands at 3% for China and 4% for India. Of all the births in the U.S., about 41% of children are born with unwed mothers. For women under the age of 30, the demographic that bears 2/3 of children in general that are out of wedlock increases to 53%. While many unmarried women cohabitate with a partner at the time of giving birth, these relationships fail at twice the rate of marriage. Data suggests that more kids are likely growing up with the television in their bedroom than with biological parents in the home. Even with children with a father present in the home, the average school-age boy spends about 30 minutes per week in one-on-one conversations with his father. To compare that, the same boy will average 44 hours per week watching television, playing video games, and surfing the internet. Children from fatherless homes are far more worse in metrics over an overall well-being and mental behavioral health. The children are often burdened with lower self-esteem than other children. They do not understand why their father abandoned them. This leads to a number of emotional problems like anxiety, social withdrawal, and depression. It also leads to an increased risk of suicide and other forms of self-harm. Overall, children from single-parent families are twice as likely to suffer from mental health problems as those living with married parents. Research also suggests that high-risk children in a single-parent home have nearly 5 times a greater chance of developing mood disorders than those in dual-parent households, even when controlled for household income, age, and depression status of parents. This research suggests that fatherlessness is a significant contributor to mental health issues in children. In light of these stats, it is no surprise that 90% of all homeless and runaway children, 63% of teen suicides, and 85% of children and teens with behavioral disorders come from fatherless homes. Similarly, fatherless homes are 25% more likely to raise children in poverty. Children without fathers are also 10 times more likely to abuse chemical substances, and 71% of all children who abuse substances come from fatherless homes. Conversely, at-risk youth, a child who is less likely to transition successfully into adulthood without a mentor in their lives, is 46% more likely to use drugs and 81% more likely to participate in sports or other forms of extracurricular activity. Unsurprisingly, those without a father in a home fare far worse in educational achievement than two-parent counterparts. Fatherless children are twice as likely to drop out of high school than children with parents in home. The fatherless are 40% more likely to repeat a class and 70% more likely to drop out of school altogether, unless they have a mentor. Fatherlessness also has a link to abortion rates. Perhaps counterintuitive data shows that upon legalization of abortions, the fatherless rate in the country rises dramatically. They've seen that in several countries, including the U.S., Canada, United Kingdom. Fatherlessness likeliness has a direct link to teen pregnancy and sexual activity. Roughly 70% of teenage pregnancies come from women raised in fatherless homes. And these same women have a significant higher abortion rates than women raised by both a father and a mother. Criminal activity of fatherlessness is closely related as well. Of all youths in state-operated institutions, roughly 70% come from fatherless homes, and 85% of all youths in prison come from fatherless homes. So, as you listen to our guests over the next few weeks, you'll notice a trend maybe, and I hope that you can keep these figures in your mind. Thank you again for checking out Triple Play with us. Well, hello, welcome to another edition of Triple Play. We're excited that you're here today, and as always, continue to.
I was reading.
Oh, you don't have to read.
Like and subscribe.
We'll start over.
Like and subscribe. We don't have to start over. We're human.
We're human.
Like and subscribe. I just need a second to click
Gotcha.
back in.
All right.
Like and subscribe.
All right,
Like
there
and
we go.
subscribe. Like and I was reading the stat about this.
Yeah. I gave that to you so you'd have a little little something.
I love it.
Yeah, to roll with. So, at the intro of this this podcast or episode, you guys probably saw something that was a little different, and so we've got a string of guests that are going to be coming on over the next several weeks, starting with today. We got Mr. Vic Miller. So, and with these guests, we want to. There's kind of a string that held together, and that was one of the things that I wanted to bring up to you at the beginning, which is there is a homeless, fatherless issue. So I said that wrong. Fatherless issue.
Are they homeless too?
Well, they lead in homeless. So
That's yeah.
so they lead in a lot of things. That's why I gave you that paper to read. So it's crazy. So
Fathers are important.
yeah. So you'll see a string of this stuff kind of happen. And with that being said, we're going to jump in today's episode. Vic Miller. Vic, tell me a little bit about you.
Wow. I was waiting for all these great things, and I didn't know I have to tell great about me.
You are great. I love everything about you. I've known Vic now for what, about 20 years?
Yeah.
All right. And we spent a lot of time together. About 10 years ago, we were mountain biking on the Green Bottoms Trail a lot. I mean, it wasn't necessarily mountain biking, but we were biking.
Oh, we were mountain biking. It just rained, and I carried my bike for 2 miles.
Oh, that one. Yeah, that was that one time.
That was brutal.
But we did a lot of the Katy Trail, and we would enjoy about once a week or twice a week a bike ride where the two of us would just fellowship. We would pray. We would take in some of God's creation and get a little physical exercise in. So, and you know, we were kind of close, but I think that definitely drew us closer at that time. And I think during that time we started talking a little bit about today's topic, which was, you know, masculinity and its place in a home. And when we're talking about fatherlessness, that's kind of the core of it. I think we're in a society today that has taken the masculine man and completely changed it, just like we saw in that intro video with Matt Walsh. You know, society is putting out these young men thinking that being a macho man now is somebody that takes care of, that his wife takes care of him, and he in turn it's like the role reversal. The wife goes to work, he stays home, and he takes care of the house and takes care of her. And the funny thing is, Matt exactly said this right. The stat is the average marriage lasts 2 to 5 years. Okay, well, think about it.
Is that real?
That's real.
2 to 5 years?
2 to 5 years, the average marriage today.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's it. So almost 60% of all marriages end in divorce now, and most of them won't last past 5 years. So that being said, I think that plays a big chunk into part of that too, is that, you know, women are, I think when they first get married, they think, okay, there's this this idea that it's kind of cool that a guy takes care of them. But I think at the heart of it, they want a man to lead them. And so we're going to jump into that a little bit, but tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah. So I'm a, you love this, Scott. I'm a Cub fan in St. Louis.
Listen, I heard that was one of the first things I heard about you.
Matter of fact, the first, when my son signed up for Little League, I took him to Ozzy's restaurant.
Really?
And the waiter knew we were Cub fans. And all of a sudden I look over, table next to it, Ozzy, his family. and I said to the waiter, I said, "Do you get an autograph?" And he goes, "No, you know." And then Ozzy got up, and I think he had his son, which may have been Nico. Mm-hmm. They went through the kitchen, and I was like, "They're gone." I worked in a restaurant when I was in high school, and I was like, "They're gone." Yeah. And all of a sudden I hear, "His name is Neil, and he's a Cubs fan. Why don't you kick him out of here?" And my son's like sliding underneath the table, you know. And Ozzy sat there for probably stood there and talked with us for about 10 minutes. It was during a contract, trying to get the Cardinals to re-sign him, and so he could be heard vocally about that, you know. And he signed an autograph to Neil. Good luck as a Cub fan in St. Louis. Ozzy Smith.
That's awesome.
That is cool.
He was gracious. He was
We can smell Cubs fans and say, you guys got to smell.
Well, he's unapologetically too. I mean, you know, his biggest moment in his life is when, after 100 years, You know, they won the World Series. I mean, so I figure, I mean, last time it took man inventing the space. Yeah.
2016.
Yeah. Well, but
More recent.
we got to go back. We got to think about this.
Wait another 100 years. For that.
Man had walked on the moon. It took man walking on the moon before the Cubs could win a World Series. So maybe Elon Musk is pushing for Mars. Maybe it's man's got to get to Mars before the Cubs can return.
Here's what I thought. I took my dad to Game 5 of the World Series, and he had never been to a World Series. He was
wow!
He was in his 70s, and we got to take him. My sister and brother and I got to take him. It was amazing, and we sat on the rooftop seats across from Wrigley.
Seriously.
Yeah, that was the only tickets we could get.
Those are still good seats.
They were we were right down the right field line. But I was convinced if the Cubs were going to win the World Series, that in Game 7, I kept waiting for it. Jesus would ride in on a horse and go, dude, I got to see this. I'm like, he's coming back, you know. I was like, and then he didn't. And I was like, and we won, so it was like, you know, it was good. So
It is good.
yeah. So I about Vic Miller. I grew up in Northern Illinois. I've lived Oklahoma, Colorado, Alaska. My dad worked for an airlines, and we lived in Sitka and Anchorage, Alaska.
I've been fishing there.
Yeah,
Sitka.
Sitka's amazing.
Unbelievable.
Favorite town in the world.
It's unbelievable.
It's a beautiful town, and caught halibut out there as well. Yeah, it's
King
a great
salmon.
place. Yeah,
Yeah.
and my brother-in-law used to be a fishing guide down in Homer, and we'd go out, went out with him as well, salmon fishing on the Russian River and halibut fishing out there. Yeah, beautiful. Sitka's one of my favorite.
Did you go? Were you at school age there?
So I was in first grade in Sitka, and then we moved back to Northern Illinois.
Okay. Yeah, Sitka. We did I went with a few baseball buddies there a few years ago, and we did like a little camp at that high school, right tucked up against that mountain. You look at that school and you're like, where am I?
Yeah,
It's unbelievable.
So we took my dad there on his 79th birthday and had dinner in Sitka at the Charter House. We stayed at the Sitka Hotel, and walking in the little lobby, which is half the size of this room, and the Lopez brothers that played for the Bulls and the Bucks.
Yeah.
They were checking in, and I'm looking at them like, you guys play on. You know, like, I knew they were someone, and then I saw Lopez, and I went, okay. And they were going out fishing as well.
Yeah.
Grew up in Northern Illinois. Met my wife at church camp, and we got married when we were young. Got married 40 years.
So young.
41 years.
Young to you is not young to people. So like when you say young, my age group, I think maybe 20. Yeah, but people my age, like 30-year-olds, when you say got married young, you're like, you got married in your 30s?
Right. Yeah, we got married by the time I was 27, we had 3 kids.
Wow.
And
That's doing it.
I hadn't had one by then. I didn't have them until I got into 30s.
You had to catch up then, right?
Yeah, we have 6, and we had them between my over a 11-year span between my started having them when I hit 30.
And we got 3 kids, and I've got 2 beautiful granddaughters. Granddaughters grandkids are the reasons you didn't kill your kid. They're such a blessing, and I think there's a part of that you look at raising your parents will. When you're watching your grandkids go, I don't remember that when my kid. Yeah, there's stuff that I can go and some of that's good and some of it's bad. You can be critical of your kids raising, you know, because you go like, that's not the way to do it. You know, here's how we did it back then. But I didn't. There's a lot of that life that went by fast. So that's part of the reason I was to help guys not blow by them, not miss. And like you said in that video, a lot of guys have checked out.
Yeah.
A lot of guys have lost masculine. They're being told that they can't.
I don't know if they even understand their role.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I want to get into that. Let's keep going, though. So you grew up in all those places.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a little story how you came to know Christ, because obviously that plays a big part too, because you're doing men's ministry and you're doing these boot camps. And for those that don't know, and we're going to be talking a little bit about today a book called Wild at Heart. I'm going to show you for a second. Here's the book.
Here's the new one.
There's the new one that just came out, and then we've got, he was telling me it's got a few new updated stories and stuff like that, so it's well worth it. I've used the old one for about the last 20 years. I've taken, seems like every few years, a young man through this. I just finished one. I'm getting ready to start another.
Cool.
I want to say this too, for those who may look at this. One of the things that I learned after doing it the first time is this field manual. If you're going to do it, go all in. The field manual takes you into the hard questions.
Yeah.
I look at the book as like, okay, this is surface level. This introduces the topic. This takes you down into the topic. This is what, if you're wanting to get deep theologically, you want to dig into your personal life and see if you've got what it is.
Yeah, I would say there is Wild at Heart. You can do Wild at Heart 101, 201, 301, and 401. 401 would be the field manual, but also the boot camps that we lead.
Yeah.
And so they go a lot deeper. And whether you've read the book or not, you can still do. But what was your question?
Well, no. What I was saying,
when I became a Christian.
Yeah.
Cut out there. There you are. That's probably good that we can't hear you now, right?
I can't hear you.
No, we've lost them.
Well,
But I'll continue on, Josh. There you are. You're back. No, you're not.
this happened the other day. Remember when I said I couldn't hear you, but then you came through still. Experiencing technical difficulties.
I'll continue to talk, Josh, while you're playing with that. So became a Christian as my grandparents ran a church camp, and they would we as kids we didn't go to church that often. Grandma and Grandpa would say, "Come up for a week of camp." Yeah, and so I actually, when I was 16 years old, I went to camp, and we would go every year, and we loved it.
And this was in northern Illinois.
Northern Illinois, up near Sterling, Dixon. Oh, now that cut out too. But met my wife at church camp. And
that same church camp.
Yeah, same church camp, and then we both had significant others. You know, even though we went to bonfire together there, and then we connected up in college and got married. And then child very soon after that, and had 2 more after that as well. So
That's incredible. I always find it interesting to hear stories like that, because back then, like, you meet someone, and then you have to get information. You got to get their address. You got to get like all these things.
Oh, man,
to
we
keep in
could
touch with people.
we actually had it was a phone that you had to like dial.
Yeah.
And then her dad or mom would answer it, like, oh, I'm not calling them, and yeah, there was no Facebook. There were, way back in the, it was covered Conestoga wagon, no. But yeah, you're right, and some of that's good and some of that's bad, because now you can stalk someone and try to figure out who they are. We had to learn who each other was.
Yeah.
In person
as you were doing it. Yeah.
Right. And so, and we got married and moved to Wisconsin. She was from southern Wisconsin area. Lived up there about 10 years, and then I'm in insurance as well, and they asked me to move to St. Louis. I don't want to go to St. Louis.
Come on now, St. Louis is the
Everybody says
best.
till they get here.
What's that?
I said that's what everybody says till they get here.
Yeah, I just didn't want. I was a Cub fan, and I didn't want to go to St. Louis, and I don't like change, And then my boss was like, if you don't move, you don't have a job. I'm like, okay, we're gonna look.
Oh no, I really want to move now.
Yeah. And so we moved to St. Charles when my kids were like 10, 7, and 4. So they mostly have known St. Louis. Lived time in St. Charles.
Okay, so what led you to get into doing these boot camps? Okay, Wild at Heart. What was your first introduction to Wild at Heart? Let's start there.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, you and I were talking before, there was a ministry called Man in the Mirror Ministries by Patrick Morley. They would, you can buy books by the box. And so you could buy 100 or 48 books for $100.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so $2 a book, and they had in those, most of them were Patrick Morley's book, but they also had Wild at Heart. And we would get those books, and then I was Ministry to Men in St. Charles County does a prayer breakfast in September, and they would have they would hand out those. Then also men's ministry that I was involved with would hand out books. And I think I got the book Wild at Heart. It was written about 20 years ago, and I probably got it mid to late 2000, probably 2007. And at that time, I wasn't much of a reader. I'd read a chapter, and I'd just kind of mull on it. I get to the end of the book, and it says, hey, if you're interested in going to a boot camp, sign up for the register. I didn't know it was a lottery.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I sign up. I think it's going to be John Eldridge and I, and maybe a few others riding horseback and going fishing or whatever. I get there to Colorado, amazing Young Life church camp. There's 450 other guys, and this camp where it's at is like a Hilton. It's a beautiful camp. It's in the Rockies. Literally, camps here and the Rocky Mountains are right. Sits to the west. It's up in. And that weekend really kind of rocked my world. I think I was playing being a Christian up to that point, and God invited me. And I can tell you a little story about that. Well, but so when I saw what that book and what that ministry did for my life, wanted to be able to help men go through the crap that I'm stubborn and selfish. So so that's really, and I had done other men's ministry stuff, but there's something that just took this level that went, this is God saying this is.
Well, I mean, it's his story, right? I mean, we're going to get into that. It's interesting how that impacted you when you tell me that. I mean, I know we both have done this book. My introduction to the book was I had a business partner who was in the middle of stealing my company. He was. I had started this company. I really didn't need him.
Right.
But his kids were in youth group. I had a strong relationship with him from small group. I thought he was a believer. Apparently, there was a lot of people at the church who had warning signs, but nobody had decided to speak up and tell me about him.
Right.
I get in business with this guy. We're making money hand over fist at the time. I'm living on $1,000 a month because Amy was working full time at that time, and I told him I knew that he was almost bankrupt, that his kids were getting ready to get kicked out of private school. So I said, get all your bills caught up, and when you're ready, we'll go. Well, the backstory is he that led to him getting caught up in a bunch of greed, wound up costing me about $100,000 or so when I was 25 years old or so, right there, and then 10 years later for him to get in federal prison because he was greedy. So it'll eventually catch up. Went through a divorce. I talked to the rest of the family now. It's funny, over time God restored that from the whole thing. But I was going in the middle of that, and I'd never really personally had a bunch of adversity. I'd had things that had happened, like friends who died of alcoholism or things like that. But this was like, I felt like every day I woke up and was going to war. And so I have to give you that backstory because it was a Saturday morning, okay? I woke up and it was like God put his hand on my chest and said, you are not moving today. And I couldn't physically move. And I've never had that. I don't know what he just physically stopped me. And about an hour later, I get a call from a friend of mine at church. He says, Josh, I've been praying for you. You've been on my heart and my mind all morning. We actually got a group of guys. We know you're going through some stuff. would you meet us at a coffee shop down in Webster Grove? So we go to Webster. And after that phone call, I had the energy to pick up the, you know, the cell phone, the older cell phones before we had iPhones even. This was like 2002, 2003.
Sure.
And so I pick up that phone. Hear that. I go to this coffee shop in Webster. I was able to move after that. It was like God released it. I got dressed. I said, okay, this must be God ordained, because I couldn't move for the past hour.
Sure.
I woke up and literally couldn't move. And now I'm able to move. So I go to this thing, and he hands me that book. And he says, Josh, we're going to walk through this. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I figured we need something. And us guys want to get around you and pray. We love you. And we can, you know, we don't want you going through this by yourself. We think you're trying to carry this by yourself. And so I still talk to almost every single one of those guys to this day. I owe them a lot, because God used them. You know, they were what I call benchmarks in my life to get me where I am at today. And so I'm very thankful. But that book, we walked through it over a period of time. And then that book made such an impact during that time. It helped me to have the courage to do that. But I also want to say that at that time, I thought I was a good Christian. Okay, and I don't think it didn't lead me to salvation. But one of the things that it dealt with, it had me take a real look at my anger problem I'd inherited from my dad. My dad would get upset and take out his frustration and anger. And so this had evolved into my marriage. And I want to give you a picture of how this evolved in my marriage. I took a devotional and chucked it, and it stuck in the wall.
It's a good chuck. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so upset. I obviously wasn't going to hit me.
I'm worshiping Jesus, but whack.
I was so frustrated that I took a book and threw it into the wall. And it was, God used this book to show me that my marriage, if I was going to be the man that he was calling me out to be, that I had a lot of learning to do. I didn't even have the basics figured out. I'm a year and a half, 2 years in this marriage. We're past the honeymoon. You know, there was a lot of things converging at one time in my life at this point. Yeah. And so that book became a cornerstone, and has continued to be a cornerstone when I mentor young men to this point. So I want to give a little backstory. Sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
But I found it interesting that it led you to salvation, but it led me, and that's, I think, the beauty of how this book is written, is it led me to really want to be a better husband. You know, in the sense of in that book, Rescue to Beauty,
right,
and also invite her into the adventure, right?
Right.
So
Scott, have you read it?
I read it when it first came out. I was probably 17, 16 at the time. But it's been a while since.
Yeah. So the concept of the book is there's a battle to fight, there's a beauty to rescue, there's an adventure to live. And you see that in almost every movie you watch. There's always going to be a battle. There's always going to be a beauty to rescue. There's always going to be an adventure. And what I've seen in my life is God's called me. You know, he said, hey, there's a battle to fight. There's a war going on. This world is we see, you see the headline. And a lot of guys are getting taken out. And a lot of guys are checking out. And, so there's a battle to fight. There's a beauty to rescue. Oftentimes we're checking out on the beauty. We're just going, the video you showed earlier, that guy's checked out. He's going, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do?
Well, and they don't have an understanding of even what manhood is. I think some of it isn't that they've checked out as much as I think you've got men today growing up in an environment. When we're talking about fatherlessness, okay, we've got a culture that now more people are growing up right now without a dad than ever before.
Right.
And there are ramifications for that. When men aren't stepping up in their houses and leading,
right,
okay, then they want to follow. Who are they going to follow? Mom, right? Mom's the one raising them? Right. Well, mom's a good person. What kind of traits are they going to look for? And it leads to confusion about gender, right? Confusion about roles. Right. Okay, you look at the Bible, and the way it's set up is that men learn their roles from their dad, right? Young men learn from the older men, and young men, you teach the younger boys. I mean, there was this idea, and I say that also about women. Women are confused. Girls are confused at what beauty is. They think beauty is tight shorts. when I'm at the gym, some of these girls show up and you wonder, I mean, you're basically working out in underwear. I mean, it's like a bikini.
Right.
They're working out in like a bikini. And I think to myself, I don't even find that beautiful, quite honestly. I find it trashy.
It's tacky.
It is. It's tacky. And the other thing about that is, what kind of man are you drawing if you're doing that?
Right.
And then what's there left later on to discover? If he's found everything out, it's like a Christmas present.
Yeah.
If I gave my kids, and this is what I told my kids, I said, if I give you a Christmas present in July, rewrap it and then give it to you at Christmas, you know, and let's say in the month of November.
A different color.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said, what good is that? And I said, when I had this talk with my girls about sexuality, that was one of the things I brought up. I said, if you give it away before marriage, it's like getting that game system in July. And then me just rewrapping it up a couple of days before Christmas.
Yeah.
You've already enjoyed it. You've already had it. You've lost the allure of having a real gift, right? It's not really even a gift no longer.
Well, and I think sometimes, you know, you're talking about masculinity. I think sometimes, though, even as Christian men, sometimes we just go, I'm not going to deal with that. She said no. Whatever she said no to, said no. She's rejected. She's rejected. And as men, one of the things that Eldridge talks about a lot is we ask the question, do I have what it takes? And we need to get that answered by father.
Right.
And oftentimes we don't get that answered by a father. And so then we try to get that answer from women. Try to get that answer from drugs, from alcohol, from
Job performance, right?
Job performance, exactly.
I see that a lot. I'm gonna do better than my dad,
Right.
or I'm gonna be successful so they will see.
Right.
Who are they?
Right.
Well, they almost always is their parents, their mom, their displaced dad.
Right.
I'm going to prove something to him. I can't tell how many times in the business world that I have seen that, even in the athletic world. I want to perform, you know, they find their identity in it, and it's a way to show them that I've got what it takes, Dad. Look at me. Look at my success. Because of my success, now you'll give me that approval.
Yeah,
They don't hear that approval.
I wish I had that. Maybe I would have played better.
Yeah, but I would imagine, you know, Scott, you grew up under your dad's
Yeah, everything. Shadow, wing, everything.
shadow. Yeah, and there had to be a point where I'm sure there's times in your life where you're going, do you approve of what I'm doing, Dad? And how did your dad approve of that? You know, and we want to be approved of. And the thing that I have found with, you know, do I have what it takes? We need to take that question to him. And as we gain that strength from our Heavenly Father, then we can take that strength to our kids. Then we can take that strength to our wives. Then we can take that strength to the people that we work with. The word, a big word for me lately has been the word pursue. And it's so easy to check out today. You can walk in, you can sit down, you can get home from work, and you go, yeah, I wonder what I can binge watch today.
Right. I mean, that's the favorite thing you see on social media, right? What's the latest thing I can binge watch?
Where can I escape and not deal with my family? And maybe even have an excuse why I don't deal with them. Oh, well, you know, I got a lot of work to do, or I got, you know, whatever. And we check out. And it's so important. The word pursue is so important as God pursues us. He's challenging us to pursue wife, our kids. And there's times when, you know, I've got adult children now, and there's times where I just go, oh no, they're being jerks, you know.
Yeah.
I always say that, you know, Dobson wrote the book How to Raise Kids Up to Age 18, and then they asked him to, you know, write a book for raising adult children, and he went, oh heck. oh no. But one of the books I've been leading. When COVID hit, we started some Bible studies. We did a couple of Zoom calls. And then we started meeting on my porch. We were about 6 feet apart. Not really, but we'd meet on my porch. And there were guys that were just going, I need someplace where I can hang out with the guys and talk about Jesus. We started the book Becoming a King, which is by Morgan Snyder, who is the VP of Wild at Heart, and he talks about becoming a king of your family.
Hmm.
And how do you become a king of your family in your domain in a way that's godly, not in a way that rules it over them.
Right, right.
And it's been an amazing book. It's kind of Wild at Heart for your age. It's a little bit younger, and it's kind of geared that way. But it's been great.
Well, I think that as men, the journey never stops. I think that's one of the things I learned from Wild at Heart too, is that the adventure is a continued adventure, right?
Right.
There's no completion until Christ comes or we die, right?
Right.
So in that, I think that spiritual growth as men, we need to continue that, because I think in a society right now, the culture that has come about is a culture that is very easy, as you said, to check out. I'd also say it's very easy to get lost, okay, not have direction. I mean, you read John Bunyan's book, right? And what happens to Christians constantly getting pulled off the trail, right?
Right.
Right? He's distracted. And so I think that, I'll have to check out Becoming a King, but I think that it's important as men that we have some accountability, okay? One of those men in my life we had a few weeks ago, Jim Bowen was in here. I mean, when COVID hit, okay, I had an 80-year-old man coming in here. We weren't 6 feet apart. He was hugging me. He was bringing me food in here. He was challenging me. He was, I mean, in the spiritual sense and also in the physical sense. He was, Josh, I did 150 push-ups.
80 years old.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's exactly what
Yeah, you need that challenge. If you go to becomingaking.com and /gift, you can see there's 6 videos that go with this, and you can see a lot of the book. And Wild at Heart has the Wild at Heart app. They have tons of stuff. They have what they call the Tribe that used to be a $10 subscription fee. You get all that for free. So everything on there's free. You can watch all there's 6 videos that go with the new Wild at Heart book. You can watch all those as well.
That's cool.
So yeah, so let me go back to so I'm at the boot camp in Colorado back in I want to say it was 2012. It was right when my kids had gone to South Africa. No, it would have been 2008. So I remember we were when that was kind of going on, because I remember the pictures of when you came back. Right.
And we had to be biking not too long after that.
But we were also in that Christian business luncheon, and you helped support my 2 kids go to South Africa.
Yeah.
And so they were in a part of a performing arts ministry, and they literally trained in South Africa, in Pretoria, South Africa. And then they trained there for 3 months, and then they traveled all over the U.S., basically sharing Jesus through performance. That's cool. Yeah, my son was a drummer, and my daughter was a singer and dancer. And they went off to South Africa, and then I went to the boot camp. Cool thing is, the next year I'm at a boot camp out there, what they call the Advanced Wild at Heart Boot Camp. And I'm standing there, and I hear a guy talking. I'm like, dude, where are you from? And he goes, South Africa. And I went, okay, cool. What part? And he goes, Cape Town. Okay. What part? He goes, Durbanville. He's looking at me like, you don't know where the heck, And I said, Stellenbosch? He goes, how do you know Stellenbosch? I said, well, my daughter's going to school there now. And he literally was 20 minutes away from my daughter Leah, and his name was Cornet, and he was able to. They became friends. He was able to. His family would kind of help Leah out whenever she needed help. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and then he invited me to. I ended up helping with 2 Wild at Heart boot camps down in South Africa, but I never led a boot camp until years ago.
So tell us about that. What led you to want to start a boot camp here in the Midwest, right?
Yeah.
Down in the Ozarks. For those who don't know, Vic has been doing this now several times.
Got 3 of them.
Yeah, and he's got one coming up. We'll give you the information after the episode. If you look down in the description, we'll put a link to all the information. So if you want to sign up, you can do that.
Yeah, just go to wildheartstl.com.
Yep.
And but we're not doing it at Eagle Sky this year. We're doing it at High Hill Christian Camp, which is High Hill, Missouri. We did our first one at High Hill, and then the second 2 were at Eagle Sky. It happened to be we had Eagle Sky guaranteed this year, but it was during Easter week, and so it probably wouldn't work well to have a bunch of guys leave. Yeah. Let me tell you a story about the first boot camp.
Yeah. What? Before we get in there, what led you to doing that? So you obviously said that you did the ones in South Africa that you helped.
Right.
What made you go? Okay, I need we need one here in Midwest. Not everybody's going to be able to get out to Colorado.
Right.
Kind of a trip, kind of expense. It's a little bit of a lot of everything, and especially for men who are busy, right? I mean, I've got 6 kids, business and a podcast. Going out to Colorado for a boot camp would be very tough for me where I'm at. But going down here, something that's a few hours away, something much more tangible for the Midwest. So
You've been doing it for 10 years now at this point.
Well, we've done the boot camps, the local ones here for last. We just started 2 years ago.
Right. So, but you had been doing these boot camps for about 10 years.
I'd gone to different ones. Yeah. I'm kind of a boot camp junkie, and part of that, people go like, "Oh, been there, done that," but not really, because it's one of those things that when you go to these, it's a spiritual boot camp. We're not going to wake you up at 3 in the morning and say, "Go swim the lake." It's a spiritual boot camp that's really kind of forces you to be with God, to take quiet time and what we call a vow of silence, and just get away with God and ask Him questions. God, what do you think of me? God, just different thoughts. And so we've done those.
did those lead, just a little thing, did those lead to his app on the pause?
Yeah, the Pause app, that's an amazing app as well. I do that every day. They had an event called the Homecoming out in Colorado Springs, and they introduced that. I've done it every day since. It's kind of it's an app that you can take a 1-minute pause, and he's kind of reading scripture and some prayer, and you go up to 10 minutes. I do it before I start my day, and I'll do it when I go to bed.
Yeah, it's an app that just tells you to pause for a second, focus, and you just kind of close your eyes and listen to him.
Yeah, he used to, at their office, I don't know if they do this anymore, but they would do, at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., they would ring a monastic bell, and then everyone would have to be quiet for a minute. Like, shut off the phones and shut up, all this kind of stuff. And, just to pause and go, take that.
Nice to do that sometimes.
Yeah. I do that app, and I do the Lectio 365, which is from London. It's about a 10-minute scripture and prayer and stuff.
I like Lectio.
Yeah, Lectio is really good. Yeah. But where were we?
No, I interrupted you because you were
getting the boot camp off the ground.
Yeah.
So I went during COVID. There was a group over in Kansas City that a friend of mine said, "Hey, there's a group in Kansas City doing a boot camp over there," and I'm like, "Okay, I want to go." It's not John and his team of people in person; it's on video. I don't know if that's good. It's kind of like watching. Can I watch the play or can I watch it on replay? And I was like, I decided to go, and 2 other guys from our church went. One guy I'd never met. I'd met him on a Zoom call, but never in person. And we're there. It goes from Thursday night to Sunday at noon. And the last night we're there, and one of the guys that kept saying, "We need to take this back to St. Louis. We need to take it back." They're hard to do. They're not.
There's a lot of logistics. Anytime you're doing something in leadership and you're trying to get men to come and do something.
Right.
I mean, we're talking on a podcast. Look at all the equipment I've got to get.
Well, my buddy Cornet, when they did them, there's 11 sessions, and they have to have 11 speakers do it. And there's a lot of video that goes with it. So there's a lot of stuff. And I went, I don't know that stuff. Well, what Wild at Heart and John Eldridge have done now is they said, here's a gift. We're going to give you Wild at Heart Basic. And we want you to take it, whether it's Scott and Josh and 2 other guys say, let's go to the cabin, and you could watch that over a weekend. Or if Vic and his team of Wild Heart STL says, hey, we want to do it, we're going to take 30 or 40 guys through it at a church camp. We can now do that. And so we're out in Clinton, Missouri, and this guy that was with me looks at me and goes, I can do that. What? He goes, I can do the audio visual stuff now. I'm like, no. What? And so then I grabbed, there's 3 other guys, and I went, Randy, come here. Terry, come here. David, come here. And I said, Scott says he can do that. And it was like all of a sudden it starts coming together, like, we've got to take this to St. Louis.
That's awesome.
And so then I got together a team of guys that actually, my son-in-law and a few other guys had gone to Colorado back in 2019. Matter of fact, it was May of 2019, and my son-in-law, we're on a mountaintop climbing during one of the breaks, and he goes, hey, by the way, you're going to be a grandpa again.
Ah, that's awesome.
Oh, so that it was an awesome. So we had 8 or 9 guys that are on our team now, and we use the videos. We use the Wild at Heart videos, but we also use testimonies from each one of us. We'll share our own testimonies, and so our first one we had 50 guys come to it. Then we did Eagle Sky, and we had around 50. We've had between 40 and 50 guys at each.
Awesome.
And then we've got the next one coming up on May 4th through the 7th. We call it the Star Wars theme. May the 4th be with you. Yeah. But yeah, so that's really how it all came together. Now I gotta share this one story though.
Yeah, please.
It's kind of the testimony. It's kind of the what Wild at Heart really did to me. And it was we're in Colorado.
Okay.
It's Thursday night, and it's just
Oh yeah.
it's just a beautiful day. And we get up the next morning, misting. And I'm there. There's 400 and some guys there. I don't know a soul. I'm wearing my Cubs hat, and a Cardinal fan was sitting
He smelled you.
3 people
He
behind
smelled
me.
you.
Yeah. And he taunted me, and we became good friends. But before that happened, I'm sitting at before we went in for breakfast, and I just was like, God, where'd the mountains go? And he goes, they're right there. They've gone nowhere. He says, they're just like me. I've not gone anywhere, but so many people left and walked away. But the strength of the mountains, the strength of God is still there. And he goes, the rain, those are my tears for the broken hearts of them that are at this camp. And I'm like, okay, this is a little powerful. I'm not used to God kind of speaking through nature and everything. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I go in. We get to the last session, and one of the things that they do is they say, guys, they'll sometimes ask you to leave the session and have a vow of silence. And so that just means as you're walking out, no chit-chat. Let guys deal with what God's dealing with. And the guy that had spoke that night had spoke about what your true name is, what does God call you. And he had gone through in his life, his dad, who ended up being his stepdad. He didn't know his stepdad. His dad had died like when he was a year old. Yeah. And his parents never told him he had that his dad was not his real dad. But he would call his stepdad would call him Seagull all the time. And he goes, "What do you call me Seagull for?" Because all you do is squawk and crap all the time. Yeah. And so he shared that night, and then he said, since I want you to go out and I want you to ask God, what does he think? What does he call you? And in the scripture it says he calls you, gives you a new name. You got Saul and Paul, and you got different situations where you've seen that. And I'm like, and I had read that part in the book, and I'm like, guys, I'm not going to hear anything. We go outside, and all of a sudden I hear guys kind of chatting. What's going on? And I get outside, and it quit raining. Now this is August. it quit raining, and the mountains that were gone are back, and they're snow covered. First snow of the year, covered, beautiful, and there's a full moon shining down snow covered mountain. I'm like, just like dumbfounded. And then I look down at my notes, and it says, "What does God think of you? Call you." And I felt like God just saying, "I love you, stupid. Don't you see it? Look what I just did for you. I know you love mountains. I know you love full moons. They're covered white as snow, just like." And it probably took me about 14 years from that point to realize what he was saying is, not only do I love you, but I forgive you. And some of the stuff and the crap that you had gone through and that you had drug your family through and all that, it's forgiven. Move on. And almost like Paul. In the story of Paul, there's a 14-year window where he gets saved. Jesus calls him to be a part of his ministry, but there's 14 years that you don't hear from Paul. And I almost feel like I'm not Paul, but it took 14 years before I went, okay, we'll do a boot camp. And they've been amazing because it's rescuing the heart of men and giving men permission. And that's what's been. And I lead a group of we've got about 40 guys that come to my house 3 different times in a 2-week period. We're going through the book Wild at Heart, and we're going through the book Becoming a King. And the guys, I had a guy the other night just say, I wasn't expecting free in my heart. I had one guy at our last boot camp. He goes, the young kid. Yeah, when I say young, I'm talking, he's still in college.
Oh, that's young.
His story, he's out hiking in Glacier National Park, and a guy says, "What are you reading?" And he says, "I'm reading Becoming a King." He goes, they got talking about it. He goes, "That sounds like Wild at Heart." And he goes, "Yeah." He said, "I want to go to a Wild at Heart boot camp. I can't afford it." The guy Venmo'd him the money. and
awesome.
So he came to the boot camp, and he looks at me and he goes, "I don't know why I'm here. I still don't know why I'm here." The next night, he comes up to me and goes, "I get it. I get it." It's just the rescuing of the heart and kind of, the adventure, battle, fight, the rescue, all that's in there.
But one thing I want to make clear to people who are listening who maybe haven't read Wild at Heart, these concepts aren't just from movies. I mean, that's John's background is in acting, so he saw the storyline, okay, through the scriptures, but these are scriptural principles.
Right.
Okay,
right,
God,
right.
Jesus was born with an adventure and a mission to accomplish, right?
Right.
He invited people along the way. He had a close group called the disciples, and they eventually become the apostles, right?
Right.
I mean, these concepts aren't, I just want to make clear for those who are maybe listening and going, okay, well, how does that all tie into the Bible? It is the Bible, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like...
The Lord is a warrior. Not a pacifist. I make him that.
Yeah, these concepts are not they're not foreign. I think that's I want to just say that because I think sometimes again people will listen in and they'll hear these things, and we're not bringing up specific scriptures right now because we're talking about the book from this level up here, right? We're talking about how it's impacted us, what the concepts in this book lead to. But what I want to make clear is that there is a lot in this book. If you're hearing this and you're going, okay, well, where's the scripture and all that? I would just challenge you, read the book and then you'll find out. It's especially when you get into the workbook and the other aspects of it. It's
even Becoming a King. When I got that book, it came to me on my birthday. It came out on May 26th, right before COVID. He goes, Morgan says that's the worst time for a book to ever come out because no one could go to the bookstores and get it. But I highlighted crap out of that book. I mean, it's one of those books that I'll read a book and I'll go, that's good. No, I was highlighting, and then I was going, who can I grab as a young man and say, Scott, come over to my house and let's go through this. And not only did we do it, we did it the first time and we watched the 6 videos and the guys were like, man, that was amazing. But then I had a few young guys who went, I hate to admit it, I didn't read it, just watched the videos.
Yeah.
So then we met again, and we've been reading the book out loud. It feels like third grade, but guys are going, "This is amazing," and they're actually getting to read it and getting through the book and going, "Wow, I've never read a whole book."
No, yeah. So now you're doing the boot camps, okay?
Yep.
And men, you said about 40 to 50 are coming to these boot camps. What are some of the stories coming out of those boot camps? Because I imagine, I mean, me and you obviously have a story. I would venture to say that it's rare that anybody walks away from a boot camp and doesn't have a story right now. I mean, that's just, to me, it's, you know, one of the concepts in that book, and I can't imagine, I would really like to do boot camp, getting out in the wild and be able to just focus on those concepts.
Yeah, like I said, I was concerned of just showing a video. The fact that we have our team share testimonies has been very powerful. Each one of the guys on my team they're amazing. God just orchestrated a team that was like, this guy does this, and this guy does this, and this guy does this, and they're all just amazing. And when we got done with the first, biggest complaint was healthy. You know, like, seriously, dude, go put a skirt on. No. But I mean, we had, guys were raving about it, and then we had a guy there that had 8 kids. He goes, I just needed to get away and hear God, because life is so busy.
Oh yeah.
Be still and know that I'm God. How do you do that? When you're chasing kids and everything else, but it's trying to find that time. And so,
and I would piggyback off. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but just to say that if you don't find that time, then how do you know where to lead? Where do you get?
Exactly.
How are you getting your mission instructions if you don't take? If you're in the middle of a mission, and you're just constantly going from one destruction to it's like a bad 24 TV show. I've been going through 24, watching Jack Bauer save the world, and
JB.
and but as I'm watching these, I mean, he just goes from one catastrophe to the next, and without direction, without a mission, and to do that, you got to slow down sometimes, and you've got to be able to breathe, right? Have those 1 minute breaths.
We have guys that we call them repeat offenders. They're guys that have been to every boot camp, and they just go, "When's the next one? I'm signing up." And they it's not that they're slow learners and they don't get it. They're going, "No, I get it, and I need to get away. I need to take that time away and just really focus and to see the power of how it's working with guys." I mean, our first boot camp, we had the cops show up. We had a kid leave and was going through a lot of hell in his life and struggles. He was back at our third one, and in a whole different situation, and I'm leaving our last boot camp. I'm getting texts from the young guys going, mind blown, amazing, and is that me? No. Is that our team? No, that's God working and just through video.
Yeah, you're creating what you're doing is you're taking what God has given you and creating an opportunity for people to take a breath and to take these concepts in. What I would even say is I would venture to say that most men, even growing up in a church, have never really put the story together.
Oh yeah.
It goes back to what we were saying earlier. When you've got 60% of people growing up right now without a dad, of those that have a dad, many of them are displaced and not active in their kids' lives, right? What do we say? They spend 40 hours a week between phone and all these other electronics, and 30 minutes with the average father on one-on-one time.
Well, so
is it really a wonder that they don't understand the masculinity and what the story that they're joining is all about? Even if they become a believer, do they understand what's behind that?
Well, look at today's church, and I don't ever want to bash church.
No.
But
God died for the church, right? He calls it his bride,
exactly.
But it's not perfect. I mean, that's why he has the letters to the church in Revelations, right?
But when you think of a good Christian guy at church, what do you think of, Scott?
A slow to speak, smiling, white-haired man.
Okay. Nice guy. Wait.
Doesn't have to be nice, but
Okay.
I know he's consistent, and he's not trying to impress anybody.
Right. Pretty docile, pretty laid back,
Docile with a hint of fire.
Okay. Okay. And that's better than some. So often the nice guy, the nice church guy is Mr. Rogers. And what do we do at most churches today? We go, hey, you need to get involved somewhere. Scott, why don't you go work in the parking lot? And Josh, why don't you go work with kids? But it's never, I can't say never, but oftentimes we're not working. Why don't you go work on yourself? Why don't you go let God work on you and heal you and walk with you? Maybe you'll pick up some of that when you're out in the parking lot, but and service is important, but it's also, there's so much more important of, I need to get healthy so I can lead my kids, family, and show them that there is an adventure in God, and show them that there is a battle to fight. My favorite verse, and I hate this verse, but it's my favorite verse, is John 10:10. John 10:10, the American church says, I have come that you may have life, and life more abundantly. And that's a great verse, and that's the promise from Jesus, and everything sounds good. But the first part of that verse says, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And if the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, what does that mean? Comes, kill, kill. Yeah,
It means exactly what it means.
He's screwing with your life.
Yeah.
And so often what we see with that is we want the blessings, but when the blessings aren't coming, who do we blame? God. God, why aren't you coming through? I prayed. Why aren't you doing this? I prayed. What's going on? I'm a good guy. Why aren't you blessing me? What's going on? And we blame him. And we don't blame the thief that comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And so there's a war going on. And unless you're working with guys as a team and growing, learning that battle, and knowing that battle's not God, you're in trouble.
Well,
and when I was at the boot camp and I recognized that, it wasn't me, or it wasn't God, condemning me, that I had an enemy. Then I went, okay, now how do I follow Jesus? And instead of trying to take my question all the wrong places, start going that way. And I was like, whew, okay, that's a lot more free.
What you were saying though is that you got to understand your enemy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
There's an enemy?
and that's well, but that's I want to stop there for a second and sit on that for just a moment, because I think it's something that the church, for a long time it was all about hell. Okay, and so now the church is all about love, right? So I think that you've got God's justice and you got God's love, and I call them they're on like this balance scale. Okay, and the American church always seems to go one way or the other and not stay balanced in those. And so that being said, I think that's been the scare especially the last 20 or 30 years of not talking about our enemy. But when you said that, what it reminds me of, have you ever seen the movie Patton? Have you ever seen Patton? Okay. Older movie, okay. And there's a scene in there, okay, where the general is reading a book, okay, and you're thinking, okay, this book must be the Bible, because it looks like a Bible, okay? It looks like a Bible, but it isn't, because the next morning they're in this tank battle, and he's going against the German the guy he was battling had written the book. I mean, he was considered the supreme all-knowing tank battle guy from Germany, right? And Patton yells out, "I read your book. I know your schemes. You glorious bastard, you! I know you." But he had
a game plan.
But he knew the game, and so he was able to defeat him. And the Germans were shocked because they had superior equipment.
Right.
They had the superior equipment. They had the guy who'd written the handbook. The problem is he gave the enemy the handbook. Our enemy is no different. When I think of that scene in that movie with Patton, We have the handbook in the Bible of everything we need to know about Satan.
Right.
We know that he does not win. We know his schemes, right? He comes to kill, steal, and destroy. What is the one thing he doesn't do?
Win.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Well, that's true,
he
but I mean,
doesn't
we already
love
said that.
either.
What?
He doesn't love either.
Well, but he doesn't make anything. He's not a designer.
Yeah.
He creates zero.
Yeah.
So when you read about Satan, what you need to understand is he is not a creator of anything. He is a manipulator of all things.
Right.
All things he does, he'll take the beauty in sex, distort it. Okay, the beauty in language, destroy it. Relationship beauty. All he ever does is distort. And so, I think when we talk about that,
Makes it bad.
yeah, everything he does is a manipulation of what God has created to be good for man, right? He takes even to something as simple as food. God made food for us to enjoy, just not so that we're fat, right? So I think that the manipulation it comes from Satan, and I go back to say understanding your enemy schemes will then help you when you're reading like Wild at Heart to understand the battle to be fought and the adventure that you're joining, right? I mean, we're joining into an adventure, we're having this battle, but, beating the air is not going to get you anywhere, right? You got to have an opponent, you got to understand your opponent. If I walked into a ring and had not prepared properly, I get my butt kicked. I'll be shocked when a lot of Christians go around this world getting their butts kicked because they don't spend time in God's Word. They don't spend time understanding their enemy and also understanding our weapons. God gave us weapons, right? We talk about the sword of truth. We have lots of things that are at our disposal that God has given us in His Word. But we spend very little time, comparably. We were talking about the family, 30 minutes a week spent with the son. I would venture to say how many Bible-believing Christians spend at least 30 minutes a week in God's Word.
Right. You were talking about swords. I got to tell you a funny story about that.
Yeah.
So the movie Braveheart, he's got that big sword that he uses. They sell those swords at Wild at Heart. So I ordered one, and it came in the mail. This probably 10 years ago. It came in the mail the day of our anniversary.
Oh.
And it was such a reminder of a spiritual reminder of fighting for your family and a physical reminder of fighting for your family as well. I bought one for my son, and I bought one for my son-in-law as well. Just that reminder. I was going to...
And by the way, those who are watching right now are seeing the pic of all the swords up on the stage.
okay,
I
yeah,
put that up right now. Well, I put that up for a little while we were talking. I kind of went through our pics of your boot camp when we were talking.
Okay.
And I just was letting people kind of see.
Put my beautiful granddaughters on.
I did. When you talked about being a grandfather, I had those up there. When you were a Cubs fan, I put the Cub one up there. I think I've got all your pictures nailed out right now, and I've kind of left up the sword because I think it puts a good picture of what we're talking about. We're talking about battling for the heart of our families, right? We want to win. We want to rescue the beauty, right? I mean, that's when we're young men, one of the first things we got to do once we understand our mission and understand our enemy and the adventure is we got to go after that beauty.
Yeah.
And we got to rescue her, right?
I'll tell you the adventure story. So we were at, I was talking about Walter Mitty.
Yeah.
The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Have you ever seen that movie? It's Ben Stiller.
Yes, I've seen 60% of it.
Okay.
Oh, dude, you
So-
got to watch it.
so
It's such a great movie.
I want you to go back and watch it as a Christian perspective. Okay. So,
He challenged me of this before we started talking earlier. This is
I gotta
good.
record this. So Ben Stiller starts out his work. It's almost like the beginning of the movie is black and white, very uncolorful. He's working in the basement as a negative developer of Life magazine. Okay, he's got no life.
Already to have no company, right?
Right. And then he takes out the journal his dad had given him. It's a travel journal, and it says, "Have fun, Dad." Flip through those pages, nothing's happening. The guy from eHarmony calls him. Do you have anything you've ever done? Been there, done that? And nothing.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to throw you a really curveball. I want you to think of Sean Penn.
Okay.
Jesus.
Yeah, Sean Penn in the movie, just for those who haven't seen the movie, he plays like Time Magazine's greatest photographer ever, and he goes to these.
Outdoor.
Yeah, well, he goes to these areas nobody else goes, right? He
Right,
takes pictures nobody else, and so hard to track down where he's at because he's always moving, looking for the picture.
Right.
Yeah,
And he's got that last picture for the last cover of Life magazine because they're shutting it down. And in the scene, every time I see the scene, it tears me apart. It's where Ben Stiller's looking at the clip. It's gone. He's trying to find the negative. And he looks over at the wall, and there's a poster of Sean Penn. It's snowing. It's he's wild. And all of a sudden, the poster comes alive. Sean Penn does come into the picture. And to me, every time he does this, that's Jesus saying, come into the adventure with me. There's a better life with me, Jesus, than what you're. And I'm like, and then it says, as he's running, you see the different covers of Life magazines, and the last one is him, and it says "Making of a Brave Man," and then the whole movie comes alive. He's living the adventure.
Yeah, he goes into
Well, the thing
Right.
about that adventure too is, and I want to say this, he has all sorts of crazy stuff happen. None of it goes right? I mean, at one
Right.
point he's dropped in the middle of the ocean and he's about ready to
Jump
die. He
off
feels
the
like,
side.
yeah,
yeah,
volcano going off. I mean,
yeah. Yep, I heard it drop out.
You were yelling into it too. Broke it.
But he goes into the adventure, and actually
Yeah.
the crazy thing is on the adventure is he goes to Iceland,
yeah,
and for our anniversary that year, I took my wife to Iceland,
oh, cool.
and we went and saw E15, the volcano, and we went and toured around just because of how powerful the movie was, how beautiful Iceland was, and it's been fun to call her into the adventure, rescue the beauty, and call her into the adventure as well. And so, yeah, so
That's but that was kind of my point before I cut off, is that he's going now, his boring life.
Yeah.
It was predictable, right?
Right.
Okay, and he thought that was life. Go every day, going to work, working on negatives. He did his life, and as you said, the eHarmony person, no adventure, no,
Yeah.
just dying for something. And the beauty, she notices him, but she's not.
But he rescues her later.
Yeah. It's when he rescues her. It's when he goes into the adventure that now, because women don't want a man who has no purpose.
Right.
Okay, as we showed in that clip earlier with Matt Walsh, that guy 2 years from now, that wife will move on because there's no adventure there.
Right.
She'll get tired of having a maid. She'll want a husband. A husband is somebody who invites your wife into the adventure. What is that adventure? Baseball,
Right.
insurance, and hiking
I don't know
adventures.
if insurance is much of
So-
interest, right?
It can be with the right people.
But I mean, but your job doesn't become your identity.
Yeah.
Your job becomes part of the adventure too, right? I mean, because you're invited into all aspects of your life. It isn't
Right.
I don't box out my work life from my wife. I share what is going on. I invite her in sometimes into that adventure, and I think that when you start to understand the biblical perspective of manhood, and when you start to understand the call of the adventure, but here's the thing I also think is very fun. Once that starts to happen, your wife goes from being the average housewife to being like the princess, right? And I don't mean that. I mean, they literally, when you start doing that and you invite them into the adventure, there is something in their own life that comes alive as well. Not only your life comes alive, but their life comes alive as well. And yeah, there's risk, but those are nothing because they're enjoying the adventure, right? I mean, the adventure is what they're looking for.
Although, part of that Matt Walsh clip, there's parts of it I actually go, I can do that. I serve my wife. I work from home now, and she's going to she's a nurse and goes to the hospital. And there's parts that I go, yeah, I can do.
I don't think it was the fact that he did those chores. Like I do home chores at my house
Right,
every day.
right.
My wife has a bad back, okay, and we got 6 kids. So there's certain things I think we
Right.
pick up the slack and we do as a team.
Yeah.
but he was bragging on it as the purpose,
Right.
right? Like,
Now I get
I think the difference in there is the motivating factor that he found that was his purpose, was his job,
right.
okay, was not husband.
Yeah, I win
Or
points when I
father.
put away dishes at home.
He did all the work in that 15-second video. You saw him making the breakfast and then cleaning, and he was done.
Pretty quick.
He was done before she left
Good,
for work.
yeah.
What's he gonna do all day?
Play.
Wait for yeah, play video games, right? A false adventure.
Yeah.
Go into the false adventures where most people find themselves, whether it be TV, whether it be video games.
Easy to check out.
Yeah, go check out. And when she shows up, I go back and say, women will find that fun for a short period of time. Matt Walsh is 100% right. Young women growing up are getting a false perception of what a man is, and they will enjoy that for a couple of years, and then they'll go, I want a husband.
Right.
And I absolutely have seen that play out over and over and over again. Young men at the gym find somebody. You'll ask them, what do you do? Well, she teaches, and I do this and that. What do you do?
Right.
I asked you a simple question. What do you do? That should be it's like in St. Louis, where do you go to high school, right? I mean, it should be kind of, as an adult, what do you do? And they don't know how to answer that, because the answer is they do a few things at home, and then they go home and play video games or come to the gym and work out for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And so what inevitably happens is usually 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, where's your wife? Oh, we're not married anymore. Why not? Well, she told me I need to go get a job. Or, like she told me that I had a, you fill in the blank, but that was just part of it. Really, that was what she was really crying, wasn't even the job, okay? Because quite honestly, it wouldn't matter what he do. He'd go teach pickleball 1 hour a week, and that would be a job. What she's saying is, I'm calling you. I want you to be a husband. I want a provider. I want somebody who has an adventure, something that for the next 30 years I can join you in.
Right.
Right? I mean, I want to join you in something that this life has a point towards. And I think even in the church, the point of being a believer isn't just going to church, sitting in the pew, singing some songs, going to a Bible study, and then checking out. Okay? My wife, I'll tell you, she has found that as I'm sharing Christ with men at the gym all the time, and we're praying, she's joined into that adventure of that, and now that has caused her over the years to be more bold with her faith in her circle of influence where she is at with women.
Well, I think the problem is we're talking about those guys at the gym and all. When that happens, like the video with Matt Walsh, when that guy was impeding on what would be a very good role, a very good purpose for that woman, and he's taking that away from her. And at the same time, where she has those feelings like, why is he at home? Why is he at home? Or why isn't she at home? Why, like they collide. I think they collide. The purposes collide, and so he might be happy being at home for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. Well, at some point, a year, 2, 3 years, that woman, something happens.
Right.
Something I don't know. It just
Let me ask you
feeding
this.
on each other's space.
I'm going to ask you something, Scott, because you have a unique view of things. Okay, being around athletes who have made good money, obviously have opportunity all around them. When it comes to women, is there a common thread that you see among the ball players that you were around for those who had really stable marriages?
Yeah, purpose outside of baseball, for sure. I've stayed in touch. I've heard from people in the past, and the one theme is after baseball, there's like this period of what do I do? What's my purpose now? So yeah, I think people that find a new purpose after baseball thrive, and people that flounder, people that can't find a purpose.
What about during baseball? Is there a common thread when you saw healthy marriages in baseball? Because obviously, you see divorce rampant among athletes, right? Or even if it's not divorce, they have their side woman and the wife just allows that to happen, right? So was there a common thread that maybe you saw? And maybe there was, and I'm just curious if...
Well, the common thread throughout all of mankind is totally, this is the worst thing that is going to happen, or this is great is I think it's the amount of sin present. So marriages that I've seen fail pretty early on. Maybe the wife was doing something that was very sinful over a long period of time, or the husband was doing something,
Right.
anything sinful. And
Well, obviously, and that goes back to the heart of man. It's always a heart issue for each person, right? Okay, and I've got a young man that I've started kind of discipling. He's a newer believer, and his wife is not quite there, and we've had to work through. You know, A, you can't lead her where you're not at, and B, she's not on the same trail yet with you. She's over here. You now understand where you're heading now, and then the other part of that is you just join into an adventure and a mission. Don't be shocked that we were talking about the enemy. Don't be shocked now that you got all this other friction going on, because that's the master plan. If he can get you before you even get too far down the road, you know, it's kind of like reading John Bunyan's book. Try to get Christian off the path as quickly as possible, because we don't want him getting to his destination, right? So, you know, if he can get him off the track before the wife is even involved, all the better, right? So, and I hope he's listening to this. I know he's been listening to podcasts. I do. I hope that that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do a podcast, was because I literally cannot give enough time every day to all the young men that are now coming to me at different times, whether it be at the gym or in different influential circles, church, whatever. I could never disciple enough men that are coming my way right now. This topic is so heavy, I believe, on men, even unbelieving men, because they're growing up without fathers, because they're the fathers that they do grow up with don't know how to direct them. I mean, that was kind of my dad. His dad was an alcoholic. He learned from some men in the church. He did a great job. I had a wonderful dad. No knocks against my father, but he did the best he could based on the men that influenced him. Hopefully I'm taking it up to the next notch, right? So of righteousness, of seeking God's plan. But
it's so important, though, when you have a young guy like that, or even us old guys. It's so easy to that question. What you remind me of is the question: do I have what it takes? And so often, even though I'm going to church and I'm getting spiritually better, I need to remember I've got to take it here instead of trying to take it and getting the accolades from my job, from my woman, from whatever that is, from the guys down at the bar, from whatever that is. That's not the accolade I need. I need to get my strength, Heavenly Father, so I can share that. You know, and the gentleman you're talking about, as he grows and gains strength from God, his light's going to shine.
Absolutely.
And so she may be threatened by that light, or she may be attracted to the light, and all of a sudden she starts going, something's different.
Right.
And I need, you know, one of the things.
Well, one of the things that it is you don't, and I think this is a key thing too, that when that change happens, they're going to notice it, but it takes time. Because everybody will, I mean, it's kind of like a flash diet. Oh, how many people have had somebody come to them and go, I'm on a diet, and, you know, they last about 2 or 3 months, and then they're off the diet, and so, yeah, they lost 20 pounds, they put it back on. By this time next year, they're back where they're at. Hey, I just re-enrolled into gym again. See it all the time at the gym.
This book, Becoming a King, Morgan talks about by day and by decade. And he goes, it's not a quick, easy fix. I remember sitting on our porch, and one of the guys goes, "What? No shortcuts? That sucks."
Yeah. Well, but I think that is but you know, that is the key. It's time. And so, you know, I think sometimes in a world where we want instant gratification, everything's 30-second sound bites, it's hard to think long. I'm in this for the long game. I'm not in this for, I'm in my marriage for the long game, not for the short gratification. I'm in this family for the long game, not for the you know, until they're out of college, and then we'll reassess where we're at, you know. Whatever the case is, people think this way nowadays, and I think that that is Satan and his lies. We need to be focused on the long game. Jesus is focused on the long game, right? I mean, his long game, we know what the plan, we've read Revelation, we've read the book of Daniel, we know what the long game is. He's focused on the long game. And so his mission and his plan is a long game. It's not a short game. And I think we need to be cautious that when we're talking about these things, when we talk about men who are getting changed by the gospel, when we're talking about men who are now stepping up to the plate, and you're going to, your wife hopefully will start to follow. Time, it takes time. You're not going to, she isn't going to change just because you changed a month ago or 2 months ago or 3 months ago. I know people who got divorced, okay, and it took them 5 years getting themselves right with the Lord, and then came back and got married, and have had a 30-year marriage or 40-year marriage. Why? Why? Time. God, number one, but I mean, time. They weren't. There's a reason. They both got divorced, and then they both got saved, and then they both had to grow, and then they came back. And I just say that anytime young men are catching these concepts, I want to encourage people. Maybe I should point towards this, but just encourage you to understand. Even in my own marriage, when Wild at Heart was impacting me, it took me time to earn Amy's trust that my anger was not going to be in the same place that it had been in the prior. She would get scared. I would get, really rageful at times, and the other part is I had to also understand the incredible beauty that she was and how she dealt with things. That was one of my issues too. Was I needed to understand. I like to fix things right away, address things, get them done, move on. My wife needs time to process, to think, to emotionalize it out, and then come back. So if there's some miscommunication between us or a conflict between us, I've learned I have to give Amy that space. I can't just go to her and say, do this. Do it. Or I'm sorry, let's move on. Like that. That's
me.
Yeah.
Me. I need time.
Yeah, she needs. Yeah, she needs time to.
Women, so Eldridge wrote Wild at Heart. His wife wrote the book Captivate.
Love it. Yeah, we did that.
And so, men ask the question, do I have what it takes? Women are asking, do you find me beautiful? Mm-hmm. And so often our actions say differently. We don't, we're checking out something else, or we don't always find them beautiful. That's the beauty to rescue. We need to not only find them beautiful, but make sure they know that.
You know what? When I understood that concept, that changed me again. I mean, sorry, I'm personalizing this a little bit. But no, these concepts really.
Time.
No, they did.
I have a confession. I have to use the restroom really bad.
Go for
really
it.
Bad. All right.
Step out for a second.
That's out of here.
Step out for a second. I can share in a minute. Take your time. So, we're good. While he stepped out for a second, tell us. You said the new boot camp is coming up in May.
Yep, May 4th through the 7th.
Okay. And is there limitations to how many can go? Is there like a limited amount if people want to go and join in?
We've never had too many.
Okay.
We usually have around 40 to 50 guys, and whether it's one or you got a group that want to come. Do it. I think it's almost better to come because you're just getting away with God, and you focus on that as opposed to trying to entertain others. If you got another. But yeah, we've had church groups come. We've had brothers. I would say the youngest guy we had was usually say 18 and older, but we had a father and his son, two sons, and his son-in-law come. One of the sons is 14. He loved it. Matter of fact, I just got a text from Sunday school teacher. Said he's thinking of coming, and he says, "Yeah, one of the kids in my youth group came, and it changed his life." And I'm like,
"You know who that is?" Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, it's May 4th through the 7th. There'll be at Eagle Sky, or not Eagle Sky. Man, I'm used to saying that. High Hill. It's some people go, "Oh, I don't know if I can take all that time away." High Hill's about 45 minutes from here, and it's really only 68 hours away.
Right.
If you go from Thursday night dinner, our first session, and then till Sunday at noon, about 68 hours, and it's well worth it. And we're actually, I think we're having starting to see women going, sign them up, please.
Yeah. Well, so That's awesome. And so those listening now, you got a little more of a plug on that. Now that Scott's back, we're all good. Yeah,
Nature called.
nature they call. He calls sometimes, right? Sometimes you just got to pause for a second. It's all good. But we where I was going with the beauty and all that is I actually have had people on social media say, you talk about your wife's beauty too much. Because I always call her my hottie or my good looking. Wow. And they're like, doesn't she have other attributes? I've had to say several times, not once, not twice. I'm telling you, I've had several others. And I'll tell you my response. My response is simple. The others, she gets every day at home. She knows she's a good mom. I tell her that. I tell her she's an incredible wife. Every day she hears accolades, and most people know that. When they've been around my wife, they'll always say, oh, your wife is so great. She's so good. But the one thing I better not hear another man say is she's hot. You know?
Yeah,
one thing that she better not have another man say is that she's beautiful. But I say that all the time because she is to me, and I want her to know that I absolutely find every curve, every part of her beautiful inside and out. So if anybody ever is looking on social media and you want to know why I say that, all my kids know too. They'll go, "That's Dad's hottie." You know, my kids know it. Oh yeah, that's the.
I've had that comment where on Facebook people will say, "Rave about your wife too much," and oftentimes they'll tell her that, and she goes, "I think sometimes it's just a jealousy."
Yeah.
And
well, and I get that maybe they're like in some of mine they were, hey, she does all these other things,
right.
But the thing is I agree that she hears those all the time. She sees the results in those. Yeah. She knows she's a good mom by the results in our 6 kids, right. And I affirm that all the time with her. You know, in our prayer time and our daily discussions that we have every day, I can tell her. But when I'm out in the public sector, I want people to know. 2 reasons, because I want them to see that I do think she's beautiful.
Right.
But it's kind of like the reason I wear my wedding ring and make sure it's very visible when I'm at the gym.
Right.
Because there's a tendency of singles to show up at the gym, and if they don't see a ring, guess what they think? There's an available guy.
But there's also part that my dad's generation, we never heard that. We never heard that I love you. I wouldn't say never, but it was more of a silent generation. And so what you're doing in front of others can be a little uncomfortable because oftentimes we didn't hear that. And so in some ways I commend you because by acting that out, by sharing that, it gives Scott and I an example to go, we need to do that as well. You know, and could we do that better? And it's so easy to go, yeah, I don't know if I could do that, you know, but it's...
Well, I do it intentionally, and I very much do it intentionally because I want her to feel... Part of it, too, is she came from a divorce.
Right.
Not from her own life, but her mom and dad.
Right, exactly.
And when her mom and dad had been married, I want to say 15, 20 years, I don't remember exactly, one day her dad basically walked up and said, I'm gone. I've got another house 2 blocks down the road, basically, and I've got another woman. And Amy was, 14, 15 at that time, so very impressionable as a young woman, right? Yeah. And in her mind, the most trustworthy person, her dad, who was a rock-solid attorney, respected by everybody, just walked out. And so, for me...
She's at fault for that, in her mind.
I don't think she thinks it at fault, but I think that there's the plant of, my husband is like my dad, right? I mean, that's the male figure, right? And he loved my mom, but he still left. Why did he leave? Was it because of her beauty? Was it because she didn't serve enough? And so you can take that from different aspects of her mom. Her mom is an incredible person.
Right.
The truth is, it was just her dad's sin in his personal life that led to that, right? I mean,
kids can sometimes, when that goes down, you're like, what did I do to screw up mom and dad?
Yeah, I don't think it was so much that as when we got married, I saw that there was this intentionality at the beginning. In fact, when we first got married, I actually had to go to her dad and say, you're going to have a conversation with your daughter. And he was like, what? And I encouraged Amy to meet with him. Okay, and I didn't even know him very well. I mean, here he's a big-time prosecuting attorney for St. Louis City, blah, blah, blah. Did not matter because I could tell she needed to get some stuff off her chest. But what would happen when we got married is that she would be scared. Like if I didn't come home right around 5 or 6 when I had to work late, my dad left me with another woman. Mine starts going. I would show up. I mean, and I'd be working all the time. I'd have other guys around me. It's 7 o'clock. She'd be crying. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, and she couldn't vocalize it, but I knew it. Once I got more and more of the backstory, I started to understand this was causing her to really question on our brand new relationship because of her dad. And so that's why I said you need to work things out, and they did. Over time, she was able to move past that because she learned that my faith was much, much different than her dad's faith. My example of what godly manhood looks like is much different. Of course, a few years after that, in Wild at Heart, got my anger and some other things that I'd brought into our marriage. My luggage, right? I mean, that was some of her luggage. My luggage was my dad's anger issue and the way of handling stress. God, through His providence, orchestrated all that, and then, you know, I would say about 5 years into our marriage is when I really started seeing our marriage start to move from the honeymoon, you know, not understanding things, to this deep spiritual connection.
Right.
That today I can say after 22 years, not you're 40 yet, but I can say after 22 years that there's nobody I'd rather travel this life with or spend life with than my wife. She is my beauty. She is my helpmate, my best friend.
Yeah.
So
Well, so I think that's amazing. You may not realize it, but you're not just doing it for your wife. You're doing it for your daughters
oh, absolutely.
equally as much.
Well, I mean that was her example for hers, and
Right.
absolutely, I'm the example. I heard it once said that your daughters will look for you as a dad in the boy that they're meeting. They're like 90. I think I read that somewhere, maybe in some kind of a youth group thing that I used, you know, back when I thought it was like 90% of all women look for key characteristics of their dad in the male that they choose, and women look for 90%. Our men will look for 90% of the traits of their mother in the woman they choose, and so. That doesn't mean that they're identical.
Did we
Often,
marry our mom?
no. Often, what you'll find is, certain characteristics. They'll, you know, like you may not like certain things about your mom. Like my mom speaks a lot. Amy's not a much more slower speaker than my mom, but they both love serving. They both, you know, there's certain characteristics that if you look down, especially the ones that I really drew from my mom, you would find those in my wife. Some of the great things that
she did, yeah, definitely.
there were certain things that my mom did that when I was looking for a helpmate, those were some of the things that I wanted in a helpmate. And then obviously there's a few flaws, you know, and as I said, probably 10% of what I didn't appreciate about my mom or didn't like personally, obviously my dad did, did not look for it in my wife. But they say about 90%. I've read about 80 to 90% of key characteristics that you'll find in your helpmate are things that you know, from a male found in their mom and from a female found in her dad. So to ace your point, yeah. How about you and your wife? I mean, how did you guys meet? I know you guys met young.
Yeah, we met on vacation.
Okay.
14. She was 15. Her mom had been recently divorced, and we had been going to vacation with family friends for a while, and our family friends that we went to invited her mom and children on the trip just to, you know, like, you know, things aren't going great, let's go on a vacation, you know. So we met down there, and then, you know, the years passed and got connected again, and then we dated for like a year before she went off to college, and she went off to college, broke up with me. Then we got back together and got married at 22.
Okay. Now, I didn't realize, I guess I hadn't known her well enough to know that she had come from a divorce. I knew that, you know, kind of from the Arnold connection, we've had those conversations. But so coming from a divorce, was there anything in your young marriage that peaked out from that, do you think? Or was it maybe not yet because of the whole ball thing? Or, you know, like she had matured past that?
Yeah. Not even so much, I mean, yeah, there's stuff from the divorce that has affected her up until recently. will affect her.
Right. I mean,
Varying degrees her whole life, but yeah, just a lot of good things come from fathers and a lot of bad things come from fathers. And you can have a really good father and still pick up bad things from a really good father.
Amen.
You can have a really bad father and only pick up his good things.
right.
So there's no telling who your kid's going to be based on who you are, but you're giving them way more opportunity to develop into a young man if you're showing those characteristics of being a man to them at a very early age.
Did that play into your baseball career? I mean, you obviously seen your dad being successful, seeing that a lot of things in him. I know that you said on an earlier podcast that him and King Griffey Jr. were your heroes. So what made your dad your hero? And what were, did those things influence you becoming who you are today?
Yeah, just like any dad, my dad did things really bad. My dad did things really well, and
Right.
the things that he did really well was always having us be a family unit. Everywhere we went, we were a family unit. He didn't go to spring training and, hey, I'll see you in 6 weeks, boys. It was at spring training. You're coming with me. We're all going down together. So the family unit was from day one a huge thing. I mean,
Right.
it carried me into my career when we were traveling.
You do that as well.
Yeah. So yeah, anywhere we went or I went, obviously we go on the road, maybe Chicago, wherever. There would be road trips we go on, but they came with me to spring training. They came with me to season. They came with me all these places. And to your point earlier on, you said what was one of the characteristics of somebody that families that did well in baseball, and the families that did not do well. Just bringing this up, the one thing that I did notice, is that families that had a rock solid family unit were the people that traveled together. They were the ones that went on more road trips together. They were the ones that you're like, what's going on? Like, you're married, right? Are the people that went to spring training for 6 weeks by themselves, that had their families visit for 2 weeks instead of like living with them. So yeah, I don't remember the original questions, but
No, I was just wondering to influence your dad. I mean, we're talking about manhood, masculinity. Your dad is a manly man in a lot of ways. I've met your dad, know your dad a little bit, and I was just curious as to, what influences have helped cause you to be who you are. Because obviously you're. I'm not talking about in terms of career. I'm talking about in life. You've got a great marriage. I know your wife. You got great kids. Obviously, the Lord is very important in your life, and that was important in your dad's life. That's one of the things I know about your dad. Before I even knew your dad, my first story was Dave Koss going to Billy Graham with him. Right? I mean, that was, other than baseball, that was the first real story that I knew of the actual character of Andy Van's life. So, and so I go back and say, were there things that, being a ball player's son, that you picked up that were inspirational, and the good things? I mean, that's really what I'm talking about. If there's a bad thing you want to keel on, that's fine. But I was really thinking more of because he was a respected man, and it seems like he's a man's man. Obviously, the spiritual life aspect. Were those things that do you think that those played a key in your own spiritual life and who you are as a husband?
Well, sure, yeah, it shaped me, and it's still shaping me. And we were talking about time earlier. I think the reason my dad's a really good dad is that he's been a dad for, how old is he? 62. He's really like, I mean, I know my dad when I had my first memory when I was 3. I know my dad when I was 4. I know my dad when I was 5. I know my dad when I was 6, 15, 20, 25, 30. And being a man is doing this over time.
Yeah.
And that, I think, your point is like, even if you're the worst father on the planet, day one, if you know you're gonna live 10,000 years, you got that 10,000 year goal in mind. You got 10,000 years to get this thing going. And I think my dad is a really great dad, is because he's been doing this for my whole life, and so I've seen the growth. Like, he was in his young 20s. He was angry. He had outbursts. He was competitive. He was all these things, and I've seen that grow over the years. He's calmed down. He's more peaceful. He's being So all the things that I could associate with my dad, he was really bad at that as a father, or he was really. I've seen over the last 35 years this weeding out of all these things that could have affected me
Right.
nowadays, but now I have okay.
Was there a time where where you felt like confirmed to be like he said, son, you've got it. You know, I'm proud of you. You've accomplished. You know, or I believe that you're a man now. That he kind of bestow manhood on you. I know we've had conversations. You've talked about doing something with your sons in the woods and some things like
Yeah.
that. But was
No.
there?
Sorry, I cut you off.
No. I was just wondering if there's a time, like one of the pictures I've seen of you
Mhm.
and him, and I equate is when he was, I think he was with the Seattle Mariners as a hitting coach, and you're with the Dodgers, and you're on a bench together, and it's just the two of you, and it's almost, you almost in this picture can see him saying, "That's my son."
Yeah.
You know, like in this picture, I don't know what was going on. I couldn't tell you anything about that picture. Other than the fact that you're in a Dodgers uniform, I think he's in a Mariners uniform, if I'm remembering my head right. And it's like he's saying, "It's my son.
Yeah.
He's got what it takes. He's a big league player, and he's a good husband. He's his own man now."
Yeah.
And it's like you can see that in that picture.
So when I was 18, I got drafted by the Dodgers, and I think I went to like extended spring training down in Florida for like a month after I signed. So it was like towards the end of the year, just out of high school, and I hadn't decided whether I was going to sign with the Dodgers or go to college. I didn't know what I was going to do. So eventually I decided, you know, I want to sign. I want to do this. I don't really like college. You know, that seems fun for like a weekend, but for 4 years,
Right,
3 years,
right.
no, thank you. And he took me aside before I got on the plane, and he said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Are you sure you want to do this? Baseball's really hard. Minor league baseball's really hard. You're going to be traveling." He laid out my next 5-10 years, whatever it was going to be. And I said, "Yes." I said, "Okay, well, there's no turning back. No, like, you're committing to this. You're doing this. I don't want to hear you in 2 years say, I want to go to college." So that was like here's the world. And he also said, "It's going to be hard, but I'll always be here for you.
Yeah.
I'll always be here for you. You can always call me. You can always whatever." So that's, thinking about the relationship during that period of my life was I didn't need confirmation from my dad. I didn't call him when
Well,
I
he
had
gave it to Ned. He gave you because he wouldn't have let you get on that plane if he didn't think
Right.
he'd have what it had.
Right, and I knew that. It
He
was
gave you the-
basically like, "Are you sure? Are you sure? Okay, you're a man now. Like, make your own choice." And I realized, like, this is my choice. This is on me. But I have my dad, and so I didn't call my dad after a 2 home run game or 3 home run game. I'd go a week, 2 weeks out, call my dad. I called my dad when things weren't going well.
Right.
So that's kind of how I.
During that time, did you transition from? I know from, and I'm just saying this from my own experience, but from being a son, always learning from his dad, to more of a friend relationship with your dad, where you kind of start to come on, and there's some things that your dad starts to even learn from you during that period of time as you're walking through and becoming a major leaguer. Was there a point where that kind of that relationship where you're calling even during the bad times where not necessarily even about baseball, but just in life in general, did your relationship go from father son to more of like a friendship? I always tell people that's kind of like after college, me and my dad became really good friends. It was like he respected me as a man.
Mm-hmm.
We transitioned in our relationship, and then he'd even come to me to ask for prayer. Hey son, can you pray for this for me? Hey son, what do you think? Like he respected my knowledge and my understanding of the gospel because I go to Bible college. So he'd come to me and be like, "My pastor said this. What do you think of that?"
Yeah.
And I could tell like he was starting to value me, not as because you don't go to your son when he's 10 years old and go, "Tell me what you think theologically," like that. but now he's starting to value my input in life and so our relationship. He was still my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but our relationship moved from me being so much underneath his wing and that he's always right type of thing to where we were walking along. This didn't mean there weren't times that I need his help. Like, I remember telling him I need to replace my deck a few years ago, and I'm like, and I'm not a hammer now. I mean, I don't mind doing it, but I need somebody to kind of give me a little guidance. Once I get a little guidance, I'm great. Like, just a little bit. I'm not quite the guy on that where I can quite big projects watch a YouTube channel and go, I got it. But once I do it, now I'm good. Like I can build a deck 20 times now. So my dad kind of showed me.
I would never call my dad my friend. Not that he isn't.
No.
I wouldn't say, hey, this is my dad friend.
No, I didn't mean that. But
even
I mean,
in my mind,
yeah.
dad.
Okay.
And I mean, I think my dad's a really good dad because of the reactions I had to go to God, my father. Like I'd bring my things to my dad and bring this to my dad, but he taught me to bring things to God. So like when I was in the outfield and I wanted to quit, run through a wall, get anything to get out of baseball, I brought that to God. And so I think that's a testament to how he raised me. To look to God, and that's a good father.
Yeah, God's
No,
a good father.
that's
God was real to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so powerful.
Vic, what about you, man? How's your relationship with your dad, and how's that played into your marriage and to who you are? Did your mom and dad stay together?
They divorced when I was early 20s.
Okay.
So there was and there's a lot of distance. They lived in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. I was a senior in high school, and they moved to the Upper Peninsula. And, they gave me a forwarding address, but it was senior in high school. Life changed.
Yeah.
The fishing trip I did with my brothers, I recognized they grew up with my dad and were more initiated by dad than maybe I was, because they moved up there. He took them hunting, fishing. They went camping.
Right.
Northern Illinois, there's not a lot of hunting, camping going. And but we had a good relationship, but it was far away, and my dad was a fairly quiet guy. And when we were together, it was always great, but it
wasn't intimate. This isn't like it was a real intimate relationship.
yeah,
It's just
yeah. But kind of like you, he was always dad. He was always. I would say I didn't have being that far apart. There were some things missing, and that's where I recognize, kind of like you said, God, I had to learn to take it to heavenly, and that's a better.
No, that's who we all need to.
Yeah,
I mean, that was one of the things my dad taught me too. Was, I'm your dad, but I can't always be there for you.
Well, we need the approval of our dad. I mean, you look at when Jesus was baptized in the Jordan River. What happens right after that? This is my son, and I'm well pleased. Jesus needed to hear that as well. If Jesus needs it, we need to hear it as well. And that's, sometimes that's hard. There's a lot of guys that don't get to hear that.
They'll chase it their whole life, right? They'll chase. We kind of talked at the beginning of the episode of how they'll chase that their whole lives, trying to chase acceptance. So,
can I just correct one thing? I don't think Jesus needed it. I think he needed it. You think Jesus, the creator of everything, needed affirmation?
The fact that God did it.
I think it was for us. It was a type of.
I think it's both. Okay. I don't know, but I mean,
it certainly was an initiation at that point of
Yeah.
now your ministry's
That's
beginning,
a
right?
good
That was the
question.
start.
Yeah.
I would say that was an initiation. What I would even say is who he goes back to his father right before the cross, right? And so I think because he was fully God and fully man, that the man part of him would have been the struggling part had he not had the spiritual part of him connected to the Father. So I think it's going to be one of those mysteries until we get to the other side of heaven. But I do.
That's a good question. Yeah.
But when I'm thinking this out from what you just said and what
God
you're
and
saying,
man, and
I think that could Jesus have done it without it, or initiated his ministry without? Probably, but
the God part of man probably didn't need it. The man part of man.
There you go.
that's what I was kind of getting to. Is I think that you got the God, the God man, and I think that the God part of him probably didn't, but the man part. That's why I was thinking, he's crying, he's tears of blood. in the garden. So there's this human part of him, and to the point where he can't even hardly move. Right, his disciples kind of got to pick him up, and you get.
What does he say there? My God, why have you forsaken me?
Well, that was on the cross. I'm actually talking about the garden. I'm talking about at the garden. Even before then, before that, the last part of the mission was going to be accomplished.
Yeah.
He had to get the Father.
So there is confirmation there. Saying, why is he?
I think that there. And that's why I said I think that you've got.
That's a tough one.
I
not
think
the scholars.
No, I don't think you have to have the scholar. I think that you just got to realize that that the uniqueness of Christ.
Right.
Understand that he was God, that he was fully man, and that he dealt with all the same temptations that we deal with. He just was perfect in how he dealt with them, right? So
that's the point. Is everything was for us. It was an example.
That's a
right.
Yeah.
So when he went and prayed, he was, hey, if this situation ever comes up, this is exactly what you should do.
And you're the God used that as an example to say confirm your kids like I'm doing it. Right. Pursuing us, pursue your kids like I pursue you well.
Right.
So that's
that's why I said I think that he would accomplish the mission without it. But I think that there was the man part of him that needed to hear that affirmation, because he was God man. And so I think that the answer is 100% what you're saying and a little bit of what you're saying.
Yep.
So I think 100% that he did everything intentional so that we would have the example.
So do you.
So, but all that said, don't you love being podcast theologians? I mean, we kind of work out and flesh some of the stuff out a little bit. We don't have to.
Nobody. No.
This is good.
We must have hung out too long if we became theologians.
Well, podcast theologians. I didn't say theologians, podcast theologians. So I love the fact that we can be on here and we can kind of flesh some things out and our thoughts out a little bit and do that. So I guess we're kind of getting to the point of wrapping this all up. What on Wild at Heart? Anything that you think would wrap this up that we've been talking about that you haven't got out yet in talking about this, talking about the book, talking about your boot camp?
What's something that you hear a lot from people there? I thought that's why I came. So if anybody has like a thought that's just constant in their weekly life, like if they have that thought, what is that thought?
After the camp or
before? So like if I came to you, I said, man, what you asked me, I've been thinking I'm not good enough. I'm not this. So, what are some thoughts that somebody's having in the audience?
Guys, right now
you would say you should come.
Guys, right now are saying I don't have time. I don't have time. I'm too busy. I got stuff going on. I don't know if I need it. I don't know. I don't like outdoors. Yeah, there are some, because John talks a lot about what the wildness in the outdoors. But we've had guys really from 14 to 80 that have come to it, and I would say 99% of the responses are wow. I didn't know that, and that was amazing, and I'll be back. And maybe I might not be back, but I will have my neighbor come, or I've got guys that are paying for other guys to go, and it's not, oh, my marriage is in shambles and I need to go. It's more, oh, I really need to just take some time and get with God and be with another group of guys. And part of it, the guys go, oh, that's 4 days. Well, it's really, like I said before, it's 68 hours. So invest that time, and oftentimes it's the wife that goes, no, you got time. But
well, I mean, you were saying earlier just how we need to invest in ourselves, right? I mean, self-investment. I kind of compare it in the business world. I'm going to use one of Scott's ways of thinking sometimes. He loves to bring this up, but
don't try to. I can't. I don't even know how I think.
Going into
you're bringing up something like this. This is something that you would probably bring up. But it reminds me of a book in the business world that I really like, named by a guy named Michael Gerber. Okay, called the E-Myth, and he always talks about working on your business, not being so busy in your business. That most entrepreneurs get so busy going, and they're just doing, and they never get a chance to grow, and then they go out of business. The average small business doesn't even last 10 years because they don't take a step outside to work on the business. I look at that in our own spiritual life that way. That's why I said it's kind of mind you
Good.
view.
That's good.
Is that
Analogy.
we've got to sometimes step outside of our busy lives to work on ourselves so that we're more efficiently working on the mission and everything else. Otherwise, we're spinning our wheels a lot and we're not getting anywhere anyways. So you think you are a little
That
bit.
example, and I don't know if it's that book, but that example, there's an example of a fly in a window. And it was a fly that's just buzzing in the window, and it's, you ever see those? It's like the fall, and it's kind of half dead, but it's buzzing and it's trying to get out, and it's buzz, 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 and it ends up dying in the window. And what it didn't realize is right around the corner was a wide open door. And so often we are buzzing in that window and never take time to step back, take a little bit of time to look around and see what's going on and go, oh, there.
Exactly.
And the door's open for healing. The door's open for restoration. The door's open for a lot of things. And oftentimes guys go, I don't know what happened to my marriage or to my kids or to my, and it's like, I step back.
Yeah, they thought they were doing good. They
Right.
thought they had everything going and everything with all the balls were in the air.
They're going good at work. They're going good here. I'm going up the ladder. Well, somewhere along the line, you fall off that ladder. Matter of fact, we don't talk about what you do at the boot camp. Everyone's a chimney sweep because we don't want guys to go, oh, you played baseball. Okay, you're cool. We don't want to either take you out or take someone else out. Mm-hmm. I'm a brain surgeon. What do you do? Oh, that's right. That kind of stuff. And so it's try to not emphasize
I like that.
who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
Oh, you're Andy's son. yeah.
Yeah.
It's I value Scott not because he's Scott, but not because he's Andy's son, but because he's Scott,
Right.
And the person that you are. And I learned that in South Africa, the boot camp, and we had one guy there at the boot camp, and he's like, he meets me at a mall the day after the boot camp. He's like, now I can tell you what I do. And he was in insurance as well, and he just had to tell me. It was just like,
That's funny.
yeah. So,
Well, hey,
Yep.
for our listeners, thank you for tuning in, for checking out this. We got little handouts, but I'm going to put the information. Man, well, look, man, we even got one of those. I'll try to stick it on there.
QR code.
Yeah, we'll try to get as much of that in our subject line there, so that you guys can check it out if you're interested. If you're a wife and you've listened to this episode, and you want your man to go,
It's pretty cheap.
yeah,
I mean, I've looked at similar events like this. We're charging $195. It includes 3 nights, 8 meals. We don't make a penny.
8 unhealthy meals.
8 unhealthy meals, yeah. But they're good, but they're unhealthy.
Don't have any false preconceptions.
you want to hear some
Eagle Sky did prime rib. I can't guarantee prime rib at this one, but it was really good.
What's funny about you guys saying that about the meal too? Last night I went on YouTube and I just typed masculinity, just curious what it would bring up, and it brought up one of my favorite actors, and it's actually got me now on a mission, okay? Because I want to have him on the podcast. So
Who's that?
his name is Lucas Black. Now I knew he lived in Missouri, okay? A lot of people know him from the Fast and Furious or from Friday Night Lights. I had heard that he had become a believer, but I didn't know a whole lot. I haven't had a chance to ever look into the story. I just think I've kind of followed his career. I always thought he was a good, fun actor. I've always enjoyed his movies. So I knew he did NCIS New Orleans for a while, but I haven't really watched it in NCIS, so I didn't get into it. So anyways, all that said, winds up, first thing that popped up was him. And it was, he's a hunter, I guess, and a fisherman. He puts all these videos out on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel with all this hunting and fishing that he does. A few things in the movies. He's doing, I guess, a bunch of Pure Flick stuff now. And I guess there's some kind of backstory why he, because of his faith, left NCIS New Orleans, from what I understand, from some of the stuff I watched. But first thing was him, masculinity, and it was Lucas Black and saying, I'm bringing masculinity back. And you watch it, and he kills 2 bucks. And then he cooks them up, and that's what it is. You watch this.
He wasn't having a salad?
What's that?
He wasn't having a salad?
No, it was
Steak salad.
It was
Steak salad.
it looked good too, man. I was like, ooh, this is good stuff. So yeah, I knew that he had lived, I think in Springfield or Columbia, Missouri, that he'd married somebody, and I had heard that he had become a believer, which because it kind of led to him doing the movie 7 Days in Utopia, which was a good kind of a faith movie. Where he's a golfer.
When we do Eagle Sky again, when you drive into Eagle Sky, it's 5,000 acres. They've got elk, bison, fallow deer. As you're driving down the road.
Oh man, that's what I'm talking about.
It's a beautiful place. So and it's good food as well.
Man, there you go. You're going to get to see some incredible things in nature. Yeah. Get to have it.
That's the next one, but the one in High Hill, they don't have those there. But yeah,
you're going to get to experience some awesome time with God, and some other men who are from all areas of life, just wanting to get a little bit alone with the Lord too, and get refreshed up. So check out the boot camp. Check out if you're interested in Vic, let us know. We'll get you in touch with him as well. And Vic, if they want to do your insurance stuff, how can they get a hold of you for that?
GLS Insurance.
Okay.
Is where we're at, or Vic Miller Insurance. You can find me through there as well.
Awesome.
I've been doing that 40 some years as well. So.
No, that's good.
Guy. It's a little longer than me.
Yeah. He's been doing 40 days. I've been doing 40 years.
Hey, a lot can be done in 40 days.
That's right.
So, hey, that being said, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and
subscribe.
Jumped. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No. I was letting you. I was
like and subscribe.
leaving some wiggle room in case you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, and it's funny because we've had like 30,000 hits on our YouTube channel, and we got like 50 subscribers. It's really, really funny.
One of them's my wife, so that 49
today,
48,
yeah,
47, 46.
Yeah.
All right.
So what's funny is that tells me people are coming. You know, like it gives you all the traffic. Like you can see where it's coming from. You know, how many are from Facebook or Twitter? How many are just actually looking you up on YouTube? All this. I mean, it's great. YouTube has a lot of information. It's overwhelming a little bit, but all that said, I just found it. I was showing them my kids the other day. I'm like, we got 30,000 impressions, meaning people are going there and checking out the videos, and they're just not subscribing. So subscribe. We need that. All that said. And don't forget, for any of your financial planning needs and all that, continue to check out our friends at Resource One. So we'll have their information as well on there. And then CS Design, we appreciate all their work on the website, the intro, the outro. And the website is moving along, so by the end of this month, that'll be rocking and rolling for those who want to find us, find out a little bit more about us. That'll be out there soon. Alrighty, guys. Hey, appreciate you, and we'll catch you next episode.
Vic, thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
Honored to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're safe.